Hey guys, when it comes to Layne Staley, the first band that typically comes to mind, of course, is Alice in Chains. Another influential band Layne Staley was the vocalist for is Mad Season. Mad Season was a rock supergroup which featured Layne Staley from Alice in Chains, Barrett Martin from the Screaming Trees, Mike Creedy from Pearl Jam, and John Baker Saunders from the Walkabouts. Mad Season was the first supergroup Layne Staley was part of, but it wasn't the last. The final known recording Layne Staley ever did was a cover of Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall Parts 1 and 2. He did these recordings as a member of the rock supergroup Class of 99. Class of 99 featured Layne Staley on vocals, Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine on guitar, Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction on drums, Martin Lenoble from Porno for Pyros on bass, and Matt Streletic on keyboards. The song was recorded for the soundtrack for Robert Rodriguez's sci-fi horror movie The Faculty. The soundtrack to the movie was released on December 8, 1998, and the movie itself was released about 2 weeks later on Christmas Day in 98. It's interesting to me that the soundtrack was released in December of 98, considering that the recordings of Another Brick in the Wall, Part 1 and 2, took place in November of 98, so the turnaround was pretty quick. Now, this band, Class of 99, came together specifically to record these Pink Floyd covers. They didn't come together for the sake of actually being in a band long term, at least that's what's been said publicly. At this point in time, Layne Staley was suffering very heavily from his drug addiction, and it was really debilitating him. If he could have recovered from his addiction and gotten back to good health, perhaps down the road Class of 99 may have collaborated again on another song, possibly even been together long term. Who knows? Now, when I think of Alice in Chains and I think of Pink Floyd, there aren't that many similarities between the two bands, but to me there is at least one big similarity, which is sort of the parallel stories of Layne Staley and Syd Barrett. Both Layne Staley and Syd Barrett died tragically, and both of their deaths were slow and drawn out. Syd Barrett ultimately died from pancreatic cancer in 2006, but his physical and mental condition had been deteriorating for decades prior to his death. Syd Barrett had a decade-long struggle with drug addiction, and as a matter of fact, one of the main reasons he and Pink Floyd parted ways in '68 is because of his excessive use of psychedelic drugs and his deteriorating mental health. Syd Barrett spent many years of his life in self-imposed exile away from the outside world. Layne Staley did the same thing. During the last years of his life, he became more and more reclusive, rarely leaving his apartment, while simultaneously falling deeper and deeper into drug addiction and depression. Both of their lives ended tragically, but one of the beautiful things about music is that Syd Barrett and Layne Staley will always live on through their creations. I once visited the location where Layne Staley passed away and did a video about the details of what happened. If you'd like to see that video, I'm going to show you the first few minutes here right now. If you want to see the full video, it's linked in the description box below. Hi guys, this is where Layne Staley died on April 5th, 2002. Before I continue, I want to mention that this location is public domain information. There are several print sources, online articles, photos, and videos which list the address of this building. But regardless, I won't be listing the address in this video out of respect for the privacy of those living here. And I made sure not to use any shots of the building where anyone living here is visible. Layne Staley used to live here. His condo is this unit at the top corner. I want to read to you a quote from Layne Staley's mother where she describes the moment she first saw Layne Staley's body in the condo. I'll be going into detail about exactly what happened, but first, I want to start off with this quote because I find that this quote really shows the human tragedy in this all. Sometimes when it comes to famous people, it's easy to forget their humanity and to forget that the families of famous people are affected by death. Here's the quote from Layne's mother, Nancy McCallum. The police first went into Layne's condo, and then I said, well, I need to go in and be with him. And they said, oh, I wouldn't do that. And I said, I can do this. I've always promised myself that if anything happened to my children, I would be there for them. And I went in and he was tiny, and I thought at first that he had made like a life-size mannequin of himself because he had lots and lots of art projects always. And I thought, somebody could have thrown that little guy over their shoulder and walked down the street and nobody would have even known that it was a real person. I sat with him for a few minutes, and I told him that I was really sorry how things had turned out because, of course, we tried to not pressure him. We always felt like pressure would just push him to the wrong place, and he knew what he had to do. He had to go in treatment, stay in treatment, communicate with his sponsor, stay with healthy people, but the music industry doesn't afford you the time to do that. And those aren't healthy people. A lot of them are not. It was pretty tough to get cleaned up. By then, he had pretty much been secluded. So it was shocking to see my child like that. It should have turned out better. And it's been amazing how many people have expressed their love and support. Layne Staley had struggled with drug addiction for many years, and after Layne's body was examined, the official autopsy and toxicology report stated that he died from an accidental speedball overdose. A speedball is a mix of heroin and cocaine. Layne Staley weighed only 86 pounds at the time of his death, and if you factor in that he was around 6 feet tall, it really paints a dark image of how severe the drugs impacted him. In response to his death, the surviving members of Alice in Chains released the following statement. It's good to be with friends and family as we struggle to deal with this immense loss, and try to celebrate his immense life. We are looking for all the usual things: comfort, purpose, answers, something to hold on to, a way to let him go in peace. Mostly, we are feeling heartbroken over the death of our beautiful friend. He was a sweet man with a keen sense of humor and a deep sense of humanity. He was an amazing musician, an inspiration, and a comfort to so many. He made great music and gifted it to the world. We are proud to have known him, to be his friend, and to create music with him. For the past decade, Layne struggled greatly. We can only hope that he has at last found some peace. We love you, Layne, dearly, and we will miss you endlessly.